Maintaining your pressure washer is extremely important. If you don't do regular maintenance on this, then it could fail at the most inopportune time. Maintaining this will also extend its lifespan to where you don't have to replace it as often. Now, eventually you probably will have to replace your pressure washer, but if you can extend that life for as long as you possibly can, you'll save money in the long run. These are pretty simple to maintain, and we're going to go over some of the most important maintenance items that you need to be checking regularly.
Now, something you should be doing every single job is topping off your fuel tank. Now, on most of these, see if I can get a shot down in there, there is a fuel filter right here. Now, it's really easy to just check this every time you fill up the fuel. You can see there is, maybe you can't see, but there's a little teeny tiny bit of debris down at the bottom of that filter. That's okay, but once you start seeing a ton of debris in there, you need to pull that filter out and clean it out. The easiest way to clean out these filters is with some carburetor cleaner. You just take this and all the debris that's in there, you just kind of blast it out with the carburetor cleaner. Set this aside to dry, and once it's dry, you can put it back in the fuel tank. Now, one more note, I just sprayed that with this carburetor cleaner with bare hands. I don't recommend that. I recommend you wear gloves just because this is kind of harsh, especially on your skin. So yeah, don't do what I just did, wear gloves. As far as how often you need to clean that filter, it's basically on an as-need basis. So if you see debris in that filter, go ahead and clean it. That's basically it. The next thing you need to be checking is the air filter, which is right under this cover on this machine, and it's going to be there for most Honda and Honda clone engines. However, if your machine doesn't look like this, check your owner's manual. It will tell you where the air filter is. To check this, on this machine you just unscrew this thing here, and under here is our filter element. This looks perfectly clean, so I'm not going to bother with it, but if it starts looking really dirty, then you just unscrew this here, pull it out, and then you can clean it in your sink, in your kitchen sink, and just run some water through it, make sure it's nice and clean, and then put it back. If you see tears or chunks missing out of this filter element, you'll need to replace it, and most hardware stores or big box stores like Home Depot or Lowe's will carry replacements. As far as how often you should check your air filter, it kind of depends. The way I do it is I check it once at the beginning of the season, and I check it about once halfway through the season. Now, if you start having issues where your engine isn't running quite right, that's a good place to start, because if that's clogged, it'll starve the engine for air. If you live in a more dusty area, then you might want to check it more often. But twice a season seems to work pretty well for me. The other things you need to pay attention to are back here on the pump. Your quick connect fittings, you need to make sure that you spray some WD-40 in there, just like so, and like so. And also your chemical injector or your downstream injector. If you use the one that's attached directly to the pump, you should spray some WD-40 in there as well, like so. And that's about it, but you want to do this after every single job. With all the water and the cleaning solution that flows through this, it is an easy thing to get corroded and messed up. So this is where you need to pay attention at the end of every job. You need to use the WD-40 on these fittings and on your chemical injector. The other thing you want to do before you run the WD-40 is, if you are using your chemical injector, you want to run clean water through it. So the way you do that is you take your chemical injector hose, you take it out of your cleaning solution and you put it in a bucket of clean water,
You put a soap tip on the end of your pressure washing wand, and you run it for a while just to circulate clean water, not only through your chemical injector and through this piece right here, but through your hoses and your pressure washing wand as well. The final major thing that you need to keep up on with your pressure washer is changing the oil. Now, this depends on how many hours you run the machine. I get away with changing my oil about once a season, and I just do it first thing. In this case, this is a fairly new machine, and so you have to change the oil after only 10 hours initially, is what the manual says. So that's what I'm going to do right now. And what you'll need for this is some sort of catch pan to catch the oil. You'll need fresh oil, a funnel, and a wrench that is the size of your drain plug here. Now, you'll need to read the manual for your specific pressure washer and make sure that you have the right oil, the right size wrench, and the right amount of oil. But in this case, on these Honda clones and most Honda engines, it's a 10mm bolt right here for the drain, and it takes 10W30 motor oil. Okay, so I have my catch pan down here under this hole. I'm just going to take my wrench and get that plug loose enough to undo with my fingers. You want to try not to drop the drain plug down into the pan with the oil. And we're going to let this drain until it's empty. All right, now all our old oil has drained out. We're going to replace this drain plug, and then we will fill it up with new oil. And then I'm going to tighten it with the wrench. One thing to note about the drain plug is you want it snug, but you don't have to really reef on this really hard. It just needs to be snug so it seals. All right, and then on the other side of the engine, we have this plug here, which is also our oil dipstick, and it will show us if we're low on oil as well. You want the level of your oil somewhere up here on this dipstick when it's full. Of course, there's nothing on this dipstick right now because we just drained the oil, but we're also going to use this to figure out how much oil to put in the machine. Now, these engines are pretty small and they don't take that much oil, and I'll show you. But then you want to take your funnel, stick it in that hole there, and on this one you have to kind of tilt it up like so. And you slowly pour your fresh oil in. And you pour a little bit and then check it. Oh, and I also recommend you grab a paper towel or a rag so you can wipe up any drips and the end of your funnel. Then you take your dipstick and plug, and you want to screw it in all the way. Oh, come on. There we go. And you want to make sure you get the threads lined up so you don't cross thread it. You bottom it out, then unscrew it, pull it back out, and we can look that that level is right above the L. So I need to pour a little bit more in there. All right, we'll check again.
Now, as you can see, our oil level is right up here, about 3/4 of the way up this dipstick. And that's about where we want it. So you just take a paper towel, wipe up the excess, put this plug back in. And we got some excess down here too. And that's all there is to putting the fresh oil in there. Now, generally that's how the oil change procedure goes on this type of pressure washer. However, you want to double check your manual because the procedure might change slightly, or things might be in a different place on your machine as far as where the oil dipstick is, where the drain plug is, all that sort of thing. So make sure you consult your manual. Your manual will also tell you how often you should change that oil. For this machine, it's 10 hours for the first oil change after it's brand new, to kind of get any bits after it's broken in the engine out, and then after that it's 100 hours on here, which for me ends up being about once every season. So I would recommend, even if you don't hit your oil change interval by the end of the season, I would still change it at least once a season, more if you need to. One final thing about the oil is pulling that dipstick out and checking your oil somewhat frequently is a good idea, because you don't want to run this engine low on oil. If you run it low on oil, it will start wearing out the engine faster than it's supposed to. So I generally check the oil once a month, or if I notice that there's oil leaking out of it, I check it every single job. Now, I haven't had an issue with the last few, but if you start seeing leaks, you want to track it down and get it repaired, because you don't want to leak all over your customer's property and run your machine out of oil while you're using it. That will just destroy your machine, and you'll probably leave an oil stain at a customer's house. So if you do these regular maintenance things on your pressure washer, you will maximize its life, and it'll save you a ton of money. Whoa, you watched the entire video. Well, thanks. You know, this is actually part of a free online course on how to pressure wash things professionally. If you're interested in joining our free community and checking out our free course materials, there is a link in the description that will take you there, and you can take advantage of all our learning material absolutely free. So we'll see you in there.